This week on Christian World News, Saudi Arabia's hidden treasures, the biblical history that lies deep in the Saudi desert and why it's at risk. Plus, Great Commission adventures. She calls herself an unlikely missionary. Hear how God turned Rebecca Friday's hunger for travel into life-changing service. And pro-lifers under attack while the FBI is arresting clinic protesters. Crisis pregnancies are being firebombed and vandalized. Welcome to Christian World News, everyone. I'm Wendy Griffith. Well, some of the most fascinating sites in the Bible are believed to be in Saudi Arabia, including where the Jewish people crossed the Red Sea and Mount Sinai. But this area, rich in biblical history, could soon be lost to a major development project. Chuck Holton reports from deep in the Saudi desert.
For now, the northwest corner of Saudi Arabia is home to more camels than people. That would certainly change if Crown Prince Salman's ambitious plans come to fruition. The heir to the Saudi throne recently announced this region as the site of his new $500 billion megacity called Neom.
Imagine a traditional city and consolidating its footprint, designing to protect and enhance nature.
The goal is for up to 9 million people to live here in what's touted as the world's most modern, forward-thinking, and climate-friendly city. Few people, however, know about the deep biblical history of this area. Those who do wonder if the megaproject would help or harm the region's historic value. Andrew Jones has studied biblical archaeology for more than a decade. CBN followed him on a week-long adventure to some fascinating biblical sites, places almost everyone has read about, but few will ever get to see. Jones believes Mount Sinai is actually located here, very close to the proposed site of the new Saudi megacity.
So the biggest issue is that Moses, when he was taking care of Jethro's flocks, now that was his father-in-law, and when he had fled Egypt, he lived in the land of Midian. And the land of Midian is in north of Saudi Arabia. There is no archaeological evidence for Midian in the Sinai Peninsula. And it was on one of those days when he was out with the flocks that it says he went to the mountain of God in the book of Exodus. And it says he saw a burning bush on Mount Sinai. So then you'll realize that Mount Sinai is close to the home where Jethro lived in the land of Midian.
His theory is that after crossing the Red Sea, the Israelites would have wandered in this very desert. As the team retraced their steps, it was easy to see why water was foremost in their minds. After the Israelites crossed the Red Sea in the end of Exodus chapter 15, it says that they came to the oasis called Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees. Well, those 12 springs are still here. Here's one of them behind me that's been cemented in over the years, but it's still used by the Bedouins in this area to this day. But will the new Saudi mega project threaten this history?
There's a city they call the Line, which would go from the coast all the way up to the mountains of Midian. And they just announced this next city, which is up in the mountains of Jebel al-Lawz. This whole mountain range we believe to be the mountain of God. And so you will find, as you drive around the desert, these brand new roads that they're putting in, and this whole camp set up for the workers. So it's a multi-year project. We're just hoping that they don't not just ruin the view, but destroy anything of biblical significance out there.
After more off-roading, we came upon this site, a huge mountain with a peak that appears burned.
The evidence is all around us that this is the true Mount Sinai. Now, I know there are many proposed locations for the mountain of God, but this mountain here in the land of Midian is the only one that matches all the biblical evidence for Mount Sinai, or the mountain of God, or another name is Mount Horeb.
This large plain at the base of the mountain would have easily accommodated the Israelites and all their animals, and Jones tells us more.
Ron White discovered these pieces of marble when he first came here in the mid-1980s. In 1985, he found on one of the sections, written in ancient Hebrew, the name Solomon, the mountain of God, Moses. And so he believed because of these key words that King Solomon actually set up a marble shrine dedicated to the mountain of God at the base of Mount Sinai.
And look at this, a large altar centrally placed and covered with petroglyphs. Many of the images depict cows, an animal that in ancient times did not exist out here, but did exist in Egypt. If this is the real Mount Sinai, there was no way I was leaving here without climbing it. The Saudi government has big plans for this whole area, hoping to make it an oasis of modern comfort. But I like it just the way it is. And seeing it with my own eyes made the Exodus story come alive. Wow, I made it. This is the top of Jebel Musa, the mountain of Moses, where God came down and met with Moses to give him the 10 Commandments. What a hike. What a sight. It took about 2.5 hours to get up here, and it was almost 3 miles from where we parked the car, but it was worth every step. And you know, I don't think we'll ever be able to say definitively whether or not this is the actual spot where Moses met with God, but I guess that's just where faith comes in. From northern Saudi Arabia, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Wow, incredible. Thank you, Chuck. Well, staying in the Middle East, anti-government protests in Iran are spreading. Some workers from the crucial oil industry are walking off the job to join the demonstrations dominated by women and university students. The protests began almost a month ago when a 22-year-old woman died in the custody of the morality police after improperly wearing a head covering. Security forces are cracking down. One rights group estimates as many as 200 Iranians have been killed. Uyghur Muslims protested the genocide against their people in China outside the U.S. State Department this week as the communist regime continues its crackdown on religious minorities. The protesters called the U.S. government to take stronger action to end China's genocide of Uyghurs and Turkic people.
We plead with all the nations in the free world, especially the U.S. government, who are truly committed to ending the ongoing genocide in East Turkestan, to address the issue at its roots by officially condemning Chinese occupation of East Turkestan and supporting East Turkestan's efforts to regain its rightful independence.
A recent United Nations report claims China's treatment of Uyghur and other minorities could be crimes against humanity. Coming up, God took her desire to travel and turned it into a calling. Hear the stories of this unlikely missionary when we come back. Welcome back. Do you feel called to the mission field? We want to hear about it. Just scan the code below that you see right there in the corner of your screen and tell us about your desire and how we can pray for you. That code will be up for the next few minutes. Well, Rebecca Friday started making short-term mission trips in the 1980s. To date, she's made 24 trips to Latin America, serving as a substitute orphanage director, English teacher, and much more. Now she's written a book called Great Commission Adventures, Real-Life Encounters of an Unlikely Missionary. And Rebecca Friday joins us now for more on her exciting story. Rebecca, thanks for being with us. You call yourself an unlikely missionary. What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, I guess I'm just a scaredy cat at heart. No one would have ever, in high school or college, voted me the bravest person on the planet.
Well, you write in your book, God is everywhere, even in the most hellish environments. Describe the kind of atmosphere you're talking about and how you've seen God work in some of these places.
Well, the streets are unsafe. The government has not provided safe streets for the people, and it's been scary at times to be out on the streets. I don't go out at night unless I'm with a group of people. But it's been a wonderful experience for me. I've seen God at work in so many different ways, especially with my work with orphans. You can imagine how devastating that is for little kids when, you know, they're ripped away from their family and put in a group home. And I've just seen God change lives and put back together the broken pieces of so many little kids. It's been wonderful to see God do that sort of thing.
Rebecca, much of your book deals with your yearly service at an orphanage on an island off of Honduras. You say that your most enduring legacy may be the love song that you sing to the orphans at night. What is that song and why is it so powerful?
Okay, well, I'm not going to sing it, but it's I love you so much. I love you so much. I can't even tell you how much I love you. Wow. You're special to me. You're special to me. I'm happy to have you as part of my life. And it just kind of goes on. I love you. I love you. I love you. And the kids can't hear it enough. Sometimes when I show up, they'll say, Miss Rebecca sing the song. I mean, they're kids, and I do it when I tuck them in bed at night, which doesn't happen a whole lot in group homes.
Wow, I love the song without even hearing you sing it. Okay, so you also write that Great Commission work is full of unknowns, that what looks like a detour is actually taking you closer to God's plan, and the main thing becomes the minor thing. I love that. How has missions work reshaped your view of God's priorities?
Well, you know, the story that comes to mind is I was teaching English language classes to I actually had 60 students. And one student, though, in particular, was very pregnant, and she was actually my only advanced student. So I just had her in class. She was about 9 months pregnant, and she had the baby, and the baby died. And I did not go there expecting to do that. And I'm sorry, I'm a little bit of a crybaby, but I remember going, to her home afterwards, and she was just so devastated and so broken. And that was my main reason for going, I'm sure.
Yeah, to comfort her and just to be there and tell her it was going to be okay. And also talk about the lives that are changed. I mean, you left a comfortable life to go and be in this orphanage off Honduras. Is there one story that stands out to you of someone's life that you helped change?
There's a girl, she's 19 now. And when she was 10, she first came to the orphanage. She didn't tell her story to too many people. And I had actually just recovered from cancer, and it kind of opened a door for me. And she told me about how, as a little girl, she came there when she was 10. So probably 8 or 9, she watched her mom die of cancer. And it couldn't have been pretty because she lived in one of the poorest areas on the island, didn't have good medical care. And then afterward, her dad came on the scene to take custody of her and her little sister, and he sexually abused her. Oh. And I remember her telling me the story that was so sad. She said, at first, no one believed me. And anyway, we developed a real close bond through the years, and God just has so changed her life. I mean, either one of those things could have destroyed a person. But she's 19 now. She has a great sense of humor, very confident. Yeah. Trust God, and she's actually studying at the university to be a nurse now. Just a completely delightful person. If you met her, you would never know that she had kind of a double horrible trauma.
Wow. I'm so glad you were there for her. And what do you want people to take away from your book, Rebecca?
I hope they get excited about missions. I've been excited about missions since I was a teenager, but I don't see that out there in the general population. That was one of the big reasons why I wrote the book. To motivate people. I know everyone can't go to the front lines, but I think everyone can get involved in some way. Financial support, driving people to the airport, praying for them. Missionaries need a lot of support. So I hope it'll generate excitement for the Great Commission.
All right, Rebecca Friday's book is called Great Commission Adventures. I can't wait to really dive into that. And you can learn more about it at our website, cbnnews.com. Rebecca, God bless you. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Wendy.
Well, up next, they've been vandalized and firebombed. Lawmakers are trying to put them out of business. How abortion activists are targeting pro-life clinics. Welcome back. Crisis pregnancy centers across the U.S. have been attacked since the Supreme Court decision removing federal protection for abortion. Workers at these nonprofit clinics and the women who need their services are at risk, especially in blue states like Massachusetts. Heather Sells reports.
Not long after the historic abortion ruling, extremists attacked this crisis pregnancy center in Worcester. They spray-painted Jane's Revenge on the sidewalk and smashed the windows.
And the police were here waiting for us.
Director Kelly Wilcox says the intent was clear.
They're trying to put us out of business by attacking us.
An hour away in Revere, vandals spray-painted this center, leaving messages that put both staff and patients on notice.
We were concerned because that's a direct threat.
Crisis pregnancy centers in blue states like Massachusetts are facing uncharted waters. Backlash in the aftermath of the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade and the possibility of more restrictions on their work. Instead of any kind of protection plan, municipalities like Worcester are considering ordinances to penalize these centers for what opponents call misleading communication. And the state's Attorney General, Maura Healey, has doubled down with a consumer advisory. It maintains that most centers are not licensed medical facilities, that unlicensed staff perform ultrasounds, and that they often provide inaccurate and misleading information about abortion.
Deception is at the heart of the typical CPC's business model.
Adding fuel to the fire is the state's own Senator Elizabeth Warren.
CPCs often lure women seeking legitimate reproductive care, including abortions, into their facilities.
In August, Warren introduced the Anti-Abortion Disinformation Act, designed to target CPCs nationwide.
Having to make a choice without all the information is not pro-woman.
Clinic directors like Teresa Larkin and Kelly Wilcox dispute the charges of deception and misinformation. They say their mission is to educate women in crisis about all of their options with peer-reviewed scientific facts.
They have to have good information to make a good decision.
Both clinics, like many others, explain online and on their consent forms that they do not provide or refer for abortions. For women wanting a choice, they offer a medical pregnancy test, an ultrasound to determine how far along they are, and consultations to discuss their options. Many of these women face economic hurdles and what is known as reproductive coercion.
We have people just, their parents won't pay for college if they have a baby, or, hey, I'm going to break up with you if you have this baby.
3 in 10 Clearway clients do choose abortion. Some, like Courtney, have chosen both abortion and life.
Even when I reached back out to them and told them that I did not keep my pregnancy, they still embraced me and still stayed in touch with me.
Courtney decided to keep her next child, a daughter, and says she hopes Clearway will stay in Worcester despite city and state pressure.
There's girls who really do need places like this, and it's the thing that empowers them, and it's the last stop that gives them that grain of hope that they long for.
NIFLA, a national organization for crisis pregnancy centers, says they provide incredible benefits for communities. $280 million worth of free support services each year. And of its 1,600 members, 1,400 are medical facilities.
Pregnancy centers that provide medical services absolutely have medical providers.
NIFLA counsel Ann O'Connor says only licensed staff provide medical services like ultrasounds, and she counters other allegations made by Massachusetts officials.
We're not deceptively advertising, so I'm not aware of any prosecution against any pregnancy center in any of those locales.
Mark Rienzi, the president of Beckett, a religious freedom law firm in Washington, D.C., says if there is evidence, officials can prosecute with consumer laws already on the books.
Ultimately, look, if the Attorney General has evidence that someone's actually been defrauded, that someone's been harmed, that somebody practiced medicine without a license, that somebody engaged in actual false advertising, Massachusetts already bans all those things. They're already illegal. And I'm sure there are plenty of prosecutors who would be eager to prosecute pregnancy centers who engaged in them.
And Rienzi warns that both blue and red states must be mindful of First Amendment rights for everyone.
The First Amendment is designed to stop governments from picking just one side of a debate, declaring it to be true, and punishing the other side.
For now, both Larkin and Wilcox are ramping up security, and they're making their case by reaching out to local and state officials.
We cannot just serve women and families. We've got to get out in the community and educate our lawmakers about who we are and how we bring such a benefit.
Reporting in Massachusetts, Heather Sells, CBN News.
Finally, this week, thousands of Jews from around the globe fulfilled the biblical command to go to Jerusalem for a special priestly blessing. Emily Jones has that story and more from Jerusalem.
Welcome to Inside Israel, where we show you what's happening in Israel and the Middle East. Thousands of Israelis and Jewish pilgrims from around the world packed the Western Wall to participate in a special priestly blessing for the biblical holiday of Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles. For the first time since the COVID lockdowns, some 50,000 pilgrims flocked to the holy site. There, Jewish men believed to be part of the priestly line came to bless Israel, just as God commanded Moses and Aaron to do so in the book of Numbers.
It's one of the 3 pilgrimage festivals that we're actually called to go up on foot to ascend to the temple in the days it existed. Now we only have the Kotel, the western wall, remaining from the temple. We're keeping the holiday that was on foot.
During the Feast of Tabernacles, the Jewish people pray, eat, and even sleep in temporary outdoor dwellings to remind them of how God protected their ancestors when they wandered in the wilderness. CBN partners are helping Ukrainian Jewish refugees celebrate the biblical holidays in the Holy Land. CBN Israel recently helped organize a special event for them full of dancing and music. This celebration marks several months since these families left their homes, towns, and livelihoods because of the war in Ukraine.
We cry out to God for help, and we don't really expect Him to lower His arms to help us. But we do see your arms helping us. So you're doing God's work, and we're thankful to receive that help.
CBN Israel has also partnered with the Jewish Agency to help these refugees get vital resources like appliances and other items they'll need to feel at home in Israel. Israeli archaeologists recently uncovered a stash of Byzantine-era coins at a site linked to the Apostle Peter. These pure gold coins were found at a national park in the Golan Heights, in a city that was once called Banias. According to Christian tradition, Banias is where Peter proclaimed Jesus to be Christ, and where Jesus gave Peter the keys to the kingdom of heaven. The Crusaders later used this city as a military base. Archaeologists believe these coins were minted in the 7th century and were hidden by someone here before the Muslim conquest of the Holy Land. Thank you so much for joining me for Inside Israel this week. To see more stories like this, watch our Jerusalem Dateline program at cbnnews.com. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Emily. It's always fascinating to see what's going on in the Holy Land. Well, thanks for joining us for this week. Until next week, from all of us here at Christian World News, goodbye and God bless you.